This is the second tutorial in working with the video timeline. In this tutorial, I will be covering how to bring in multiple layers into the video timeline and how to apply keyframes, specifically the transformation, opacity, and style keyframe to each layer. To start, I want you to make sure that you have each layer created into a smart object. You'll know it's a smart object when there's a little box in the corner. If you don't have that, you need to go click on the layer, select it, and then go under Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object. Once you have those transformed, you can unclick your background layer, and I'm going to select all of my layers that I want to bring into the timeline, and then I'm going to click on Create Video Timeline. I'm going to pull this up so you can see that every single layer has been assigned its own video track. So as of now, I don't have any movement going on because I haven't assigned any keyframes, but I'm going to show you how to do that next. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the flyout menu and set my time frame. I'm going to set it for 10 to keep it simple, and click OK. I now have 10 frames per second. I can see this now going across the frame counter, and I've enlarged this so I can see each frame. I moved all the squares over to the left corner, and I'm going to move them through the page. So I'm also going to put on my background. I'm able to see it a little better. I did not put my background into the time frame because I'm not transforming anything in it. It's going to be just a solid color in the background. So basically you're doing the exact same thing that you did in the last tutorial with the black box, but you just have a number of layers that you can work with that can overlap one another. So to start, I'm going to click on my first layer, which is layer 5, and I'm going to set my transform here to its position where it is right now. Then I'm going to move 2 frames, and I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to move it 2 more frames and move it again, and I'm going to make it a little smaller this time, and then again I'm going to accept that by clicking return. Move this. I'm going to move it all the way across the page. I'm going to set each one working with duration, so I'm going to go all the way up to a second and move it here. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set the keyframes for layer 4. So I'm going to set my keyframe here at 0, 0, and move it over to catch up with the other square, and I'm going to enlarge it so it kind of encloses it. And then I'm going to click OK. So we see how this is looking. Yeah. And then I'm going to move it one more time, set it at 1 second. So I'm making bigger transitions of time for this box. And I'm going to move it up and off the page. You can see that the keyframe was positioned. So I'm going to move to the yellow layer. It's a little thicker of a box, and I'm going to click my transform, and then I'm going to move this over to the middle, set a keyframe you can see right there, and this time I'm going to make it super big, and I'm going to kind of bring it off the whole page. Let's see what that looks like. So I use the transform. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so this one's going to go off the page. I'm going to scrub through the time frame and decide where I want to bring this square. So I'm going to bring it right in the middle, and then once that moves out of the way, I think I will maybe bounce it. So I bounced it there. I set a keyframe where it's hitting the bottom of the page, then it moves up, then it moves back down, and then it moves off the page. The last one is my blue color, and I'm going to play head over, set the transform, and move this through. Let's see where I want it to go. sets its first keyframe. Set another one here, so it's overlapping the green. And I'll have this one bounce again too. Goes back up, and then comes off the page. Okay, so I'm going to play this out. All right, so I've set keyframes through the transformation for each one of these layers, and they move from left to right. If I decide to make a change, I can make a change to the keyframes. It's not like they're cast in stone and I can't move them. So I can move these keyframes by just dragging them from one position to another. And also, maybe I'm not really liking the super big size of the square, and I don't really want to do that. I can just click on it and delete it, and away it goes. I can start all over. And so I'll do that. I'll just start here, and I'll move it. Oh, I have to move my playhead first. Start here and move it here and enlarge it, but it doesn't have to go off so much off the page. Maybe up this way. Okay, so I just made that change to it, and you can just click on these and delete them. Next, I'm going to show you how to work with your shapes intersecting one another. I'm going to bring the objects back through the space going from left to right. So I've already done one, I've set it up, and I've moved the orange shape through it, transformed it a little bit smaller, and then larger, and then I moved it off the page. I'm going to show you how I did that in the next layer. So I think I'll select the green layer, and I'm going to move the playhead over 3 frames, and we're going to move it over on top of the orange shape and set a keyframe. When I click return, it automatically sets a frame. Then I'm going to move it again. If I hold down my option key and select a corner, it will reduce and enlarge through the center. So I'm going to free transform it, so I have to do Command T. It'll give me the ability to rotate it, and I'm going to make it larger holding the option key. I'm going to move it up and off the page. This example shows more complexity and control over the duration and transition between shapes and how they intersect one another. You can also move these tracks so that the object comes in a little bit later. So you can set your keyframes to do that, but you can also move your track to come in later in the duration of the time frame. So say I want to bring in this blue layer just a little bit later. I don't want it to start exactly with everything else. I can click on it and drag it over. And now it won't come into the composition until the playhead hits it. So I can start to change the tempo and the duration of when things start and stop by moving video layer. So I'm going to move a couple of these and see kind of how it happened. So that's another way that you can work to control the timing of how each layer enters into the time frame. So that's how to use multiple layers with the transform key. I didn't use the opacity, but you can set opacity to each one of these layers as well. I'd like you to practice setting up a series of layers, applying keyframes to them, and then moving some of these layers through the duration, just experimenting and getting a feel for it. Have fun.